Hello ladies and gentlemen, so we're going to be looking at this article. Very specific parts of this article that I've got to add. We covered this last night on a live stream, which I'll leave linked above. Check it out. We covered it live. And if you don't know, I live stream every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. It used to be 4 PM Eastern Standard Time, but due to time zones, I think it's now 3 PM Eastern Standard Time because you guys changed your clocks and we in the UK haven't done that yet. So we covered this already. And there's a very specific part that I want to go over to today. You've read the title. Ray Fisher has responded to a bit of this article, right? And this article actually, I mean, it refutes a lot of his claims, basically. But I want to go through it just bit by bit, like I have done with a lot of his points. There'll be people that will just say, yeah, 100% support him, believe all, whatever. I get that. That's fine. There's no reasoning with you chaps. So... And girls, I don't want to assume anyone's gender. So let's take a look. No, I'm not going to sign up. So it's straight down the bottom, right? And again, it's pretty to the point what they say. So here, the person at Variety asks categorically, Ray Fisher has accused Warner Brothers executives of racially biased behaviour and of trying to impede an investigation into alleged misconduct on the set of Justice League. Did your investigation corroborate any of his claims of racism on the part of your employers? Now, the way this is framed, the investigation is done, it's over. We know that anyway. Warner Brothers have said it's completely done. And from their side of it, there's nothing else to say. There is literally nothing else to happen at this point in time. But it's being perpetuated constantly by people in the media, by Variety, but then also the likes of Ray Fisher continuously tweeting stuff, and yet still not providing actual clear-cut specifics, which I know some people will say, no, he has, because what we're about to say is clear-cut specifics. It's not really, and I'll tell you, I want to just play devil's advocate and show you a different thought process, right? So Anne Sarnoff replied, no, our investigator, Judge Catherine Forrest, has issued statements specifically about DC Films president Walter Hamada, saying that there was no evidence of interference by Walter in the investigation. She said that the cuts made in the Joss Whedon version of Justice League were not racially motivated. We took it very seriously, so we hired one of the top investigators out there and gave her a tremendous amount of leeway. Makes sense, cool. Now, they then asked, Ray Fisher has previously stated that because of a non-disclosure agreement, he can't share specifics about the abusive behaviour he endured on the set of Justice League. Is there an NDA that would prevent him from publicly sharing all the details of what transpired in Justice League? And she responded, not that I know of, no. Now, it's really important to say that Ray Fisher's spokesman then said Mr. Fisher is no longer under NDA and will comment further when appropriate to do so. But the specifics of NDAs, they don't work like that. NDAs are not for that. I've been on film sets, I've reviewed films that are coming out and been to world premieres and things. NDAs don't cover those types of subjects. NDAs only cover the content in the film. Very specifics. It's all about protecting the content in the film so that when they run the marketing campaign, there's been no leaks. The last thing a studio wants is leaks. But then also, having said all of that, everyone will know this, and lawyers can chime in with this. Any illegal activity does void the legal bounds of an NDA contract. Very obviously. So if there was any NDA that said, well, you can't talk about what goes on between whatever, and illegal activity occurred, like racism, then, well, that literally makes that defunct. So, completely redundant. And then interestingly here, it says obviously Walter Hamada has been on the receiving end of a lot of fan criticism. And she just kind of says a lot of these kind of things and says, obviously, look, I'm fully supportive of these people, blah, blah, blah. And also Walter Hamada is a person of colour because he's not white. And obviously now lots of people are just saying, well, everyone's a person of colour nowadays. So it's very interesting when we then see Ray Fisher's response, because apparently it doesn't matter whether you're Asian American, it doesn't make you a person of colour, according to Ray Fisher. So anyway, Ray Fisher did respond, which was very, very obvious that he was going to do this. It's always a matter of time with this chap. And he said the following. So, apparently some folks at Warner Media think that a room full of executives saying we can't have an angry black man at the centre of the movie and then removing all black and people of colour from that movie isn't racist. Right. few things, right? Most people would say that the angry black person is a racial stereotype, okay? This is a situation where it's a lose-lose situation, right? There will be some people that will say, you know, if there was no controversy about this, and then Ray Fisher said, oh, they made me the angry black person, people would rally to his cause. They'd say, oh, that's a racial stereotype. What a bunch of racists. Of course they would. Like, yeah, absolutely they would. We see it all the time. People saying that the angry black person is a racial stereotype. So it's kind of like, well, pick your poison on this one, guys. Like, where do you sit on this one? Because at the end of the day, them saying, well, we can't have an angry black man at the centre of the movie, without context, I mean, that doesn't sound bad to me. It really doesn't. It's considering it's a racial stereotype. Nah, doesn't sound bad to me at all. Literally, not at all. And then this whole removing all black and people of colour from that movie. Like who? Jason Momoa is not white. Gal Gadot is not white. Who are you referring to? Who else? Who else? They chopped the movie down, right? And yes, I understand now, having seen the Snyder cut, why Ray Fisher was annoyed, because he was cut down a lot. But you have to cut someone. And Ray Fisher's not more important than Batman. Like, he is not a draw. Right? The character of Cyborg's not a draw. Batman and Superman are. The core characters are more of the draw. So if you go, if say executives mandated that we need to make it shorter because 4 hours isn't viable in a movie theatre, which they obviously did, who's going to get cut more? Well, throwaway characters. Regardless of narrative structure, it'll always be throwaway characters because they still want to promote the characters that are the draw. That makes perfect sense to me anyway. I don't see any racism there. Now, this part I found very contradictory and very, very funny. The investigator hired by Warner Media was brought on to help the company assess and evade legal liabilities. This is someone you praised, Ray, and it's someone that you actually clipped a voice discussion with to use as evidence. Make your goddamn mind up whether you like this person or not, because you're sounding really, really hypocritical right here. And there's no two ways about it. You do sound like a hypocrite. You either rate this investigator, which you praised in the past, or now you don't. Which one is it? Is it just because they're now stating things more publicly that show you in a bad light? Like, which is it? Because you use them as pro you. Oh, look at this. This is evidence that I'm right. And now you're slating them. So, like, I don't see any legitimate points here being raised. I only see more bounds for confusion. Anyway, he then said, he then literally insults her, right? Continually touting her status as a former federal judge in an attempt to sway public opinion is obvious and desperate. She is now simply a lawyer. But she was a federal judge. And that means that she reached that level, which is important, because it means that when she comes to do an investigation, she was of a level that commands respect. If they just say, well, she's just a lawyer, people would go, well, what's the point in her then? And they'd go, oh, well, she was actually a federal judge. They go, why didn't you say that? Because that's the point. Like, do you not understand how these things work, Ray? Anyway, and then he continued further and says, as I've said, people will attempt to shit blame completely to Joss Whedon, or shift blame, sorry, or shit blame kind of works as well, for the Justice League reshoots. I'm looking at that film, I don't understand why some of it was reshot, to be fair, but whatever. Toby Emmerich, Jeff Johns, and John Berg share all the responsibility with Johns working directly with Joss on restructuring the script based on the execs' conversations, which that's standard practice. What's the issue? Furthermore, there really was nothing that Walter did against Ray. In fact, he offered him a role in the Flash movie, and Walter happens to be a person of colour, so he knows what that feels like. Are the absolute definition of tone deaf. Why? Does his Asian American descent offend you, Ray? Does that mean that his perspective on being a person of colour is invalid, Ray? Like, what are you trying to say here, mate? I'm so confused. The left eating the left. They do this all the goddamn time. It's very, very funny. Just because he's Asian American, Ray, it doesn't mean that you got one up on him. Come on now, mate. That's not a good look, bro. Anyway, final thought for now, he chimed in. Rather than trying to convince people on what the Justice League investigation didn't find, how about you start telling them what it did? Why don't you start telling people what it did? You're not under an NDA. Tell people what happened then, mate. We've all been waiting for it. I want to know. Those comments about them lightening your skin was nonsense, wasn't it? We've seen the film now. You look the bloody same. The public is a lot smarter than what you're giving them credit for. The proof is there. More soon. Come on now. Come on now. And then someone wrote, okay already, end the rant. No offense, you sir are no Chadwick Boseman or Samuel L. Jackson. Whedon directed a little movie called The Avengers with Sam Jackson, Chadwick, Zoe, Vin, Denai, Letitia, Ted, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Anyway, there's no point reading out any of these things. This doesn't make any goddamn sense. This is all pointless. If anyone believes this stuff, newsflash, I'm sorry, you're not very smart. He's, once again, not saying anything. He's also refuting another person of colour's life experiences, saying it's tone deaf. Like, come on. What are you, like, I don't believe in any of that nonsense anyway. This whole, like, but that's my truth. Like, no, that doesn't jive with me anyway. But it's still funny watching them sort of try and refute one another. So anyway, let me know what you think of this down below in the comment section. If you're new here, please do hit subscribe. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Cheers. Take care.